Dear class, welcome to American National Government. As you may remember, I'm supposed to tape a short video on Sweezy and Dobbs. They talk about transition from feudalism to capitalism. Most of you discussed the paper in your answers related to European history, but I think we should look at this reading a little bit carefully. So what are we talking about here? We're going to discuss feudalism. We're going to talk about how they define capitalism and feudalism and what was happening in medieval England. Let's start with feudalism. For Dobbs, feudalism is about lords owning servants or serfs. So the lords own land and tell the serfs what must be produced, whether it's crops, fishing, lumber, like forestry, or like any other kind of activity, any economic activity. The lords dictate this to their servants. So production is also for local consumption only. That means lords own a lot of land. They usually can end up owning huge chunks of land, like entire parts of Wales or Scotland. So local here means related to the lord's lands, like staying within the region. So these are large areas. So there are lots of local markets. People go there to buy and sell things for local consumption. If they need food, if they need particular kinds of products, they will go to the local market. And so the region as a whole only produces for its local use. It doesn't care about other parts of the planet. So capitalism is different. Capitalism is where you do not produce for local consumption, but for trade. So this explanation is for agriculture, fishing, forestry, mining, whatever you call it. Because profit is the main goal, labor relations get worse. So in feudalism, you know that there's pressure on the workers to produce, but it's only for local use, right? Local consumption. So they're not producing for the planet. But in capitalism, this is the goal. They're producing for more places than their own local region. The idea is to maximize production for profit. Taxes. So in both feudalism and capitalism, during medieval times, lords had to pay taxes to kings. We saw that, right, with the Magna Carta. Usually these taxes got higher and higher over time, right? Whenever there's a war, especially, the kings would increase taxes on the local people. So the lords put more pressure on the workers or peasants to produce more food, more lumber, more fishing, and pay taxes on sales of goods, right? So this is as the tax rate goes up, we see the pressure on the workers goes up. And eventually the goal becomes trade with capitalism, right? So with capitalist agriculture, the profits are higher and so are the taxes. The tax rate is also high for capitalism because the goal here is maximization of profit. And so we see that people are not just growing what they have, to eat or to use locally. They're growing thousands and thousands of units of corn or wheat that are in excess of local use. Population growth. So Dobbs and Sweezy also talk about the fact that in feudalism, population of the region grows over time. People have children, they have grandchildren. Eventually, there's a lot more people that can find work on the Lord's lands, and so people go elsewhere in search of work. Eventually, depopulation of rural lands for cities or burghers. These cities are called burghers, right? So these rural regions eventually lose a large part of the population over time to the cities where there's more work. So Adam Smith is somebody we'll study later, but since Dobb and Sweezy bring up certain aspects of capitalism, I thought I would talk about it. So Adam Smith is the author of Wealth of Nations, and you'll study him. During industrial capitalism, Smith says that the development of banks and loans for businesses go up, division of labor happens. So, division of labor is where you are dividing the task of production. And we'll talk about this when we study Adam Smith. Trade and the growth of markets also happen because the goal is production for profit and for trade. And so we're looking to establish relationships around the world where we can sell our goods. We also have the rise of industrial machinery. With machinery, if you think about assembly line setup, you can produce a lot of goods than if you try to produce the same good yourself. And again, we'll talk about this when we talk about Adam Smith. So, all of this helped to increase production. Did it also lead to increase in sales? Something to think about. And what about the relationship between labor and factory owners? Is it more exploitative or less exploitative than when we had industrial agriculture, where you have a lot of taxes, you have a lot of pressure on peasants to produce, but the production now is not for local use, but for trade. Remember? Okay, so think about these concepts because you're looking at European history. Why did people leave Europe, right? So we're concerned with the question of why they left. And you guys looked at Protestant Reformation and the English Civil Wars. That was good. That's definitely important, but also the availability of, higher populations without jobs. This is one issue. You also have from the point of view of the lords, the desire to find better lands. So let's actually type that up. Population growth was something. Need for jobs. The other one was lords want to be lords to own more productive lands. Whether it's for agriculture or fishing or forestry or mining, these lords figured out in England that they had land which had probably, very good um, productivity up to a point, but after that, the soil may have been overworked. Maybe they used up what mines they had, and they heard about the Americas, a land which was very, very rich as far as agriculture, forestry, mining, food, fishery, everything. So people are now thinking, wow, there is a place called America. And I've heard that a lot of countries are going there. Spain, France, all of them are moving. So maybe we should think about it. So let's stop here for today. And I hope that this will help you to understand some of the reasons why people left Europe during the 1500s and 1600s.